Welcome to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching Podcast, where we bring you guidance and coaching perspectives so that you can level up in your life and work. In the ever-evolving world of healthcare, we understand the challenges and opportunities that clinicians and leaders face, and our goal is to provide you with valuable insights, expert interviews, and practical advice to empower you on your path to success. And at Transforming Healthcare Coaching, we believe that everyone in healthcare deserves a coach, and that together we can transform healthcare one person at a time. And so my name is Lillian Liang Emlet. I'm the founder and CEO. We have a team of coaches from many disciplines that are all trained in energy leadership coaching, and we help clinicians in healthcare with a wide variety of specializations, including well-being, performance, executive leadership. And all of us either worked in healthcare or are currently still working in healthcare. So you know that our coaches, we understand what you're going through day in, day out. And so I'm super excited to have our guest today, Emily Burnett here of Moso Money. And so I will let her introduce herself. So Emily, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lillian. It's really fun to be here and to have this conversation with you. As far as my introduction, I've said for the last year and a half that I'm a financial coach, and I still am. However, I have had my own journey of digging deeper into my why. And what really excites me is getting people excited about their money. That's one of those topics. And I know from personal experience, there's so much shame and just icky feelings around. And so that's a big part of my mission is to help people get intentional with their money so they can get more intentional with their lives so that there's less general waiting for life to start and a lot more living and realizing your dreams and tapping into your potential. So I'm a traveler. I'm currently in North Carolina, and that's probably enough about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. So I guess I'll start with the topic that I actually have to admit that I don't love, budgeting. I insist that budgeting in happy ways might be the key to a happy life for all income levels.
Yeah, and I'm glad you added that word might because I used to be really dogmatic about this. And I now like to say it is a key to a happy life. Critical in your question is happy ways. And the way a lot of people talk about budgeting is the opposite. It sounds like something you do when you don't have a lot of money, or it sounds like something that's a miserable, depriving experience you do until you get more money and don't have to. But I would say my definition of budgeting is pretty simple. There's no deprivation or misery involved. It's just proactively planning your spending so that you can spend on what really matters to you. And that last part may sound really a no brainer, but it's wild how easy it is to spend like everybody else without it actually even making you happy.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's such a key. It's because it brings you into conversation with your values and what you even want out of this one and only life. And budgeting is often, especially in midlife, it's often the first chance people have to really get intentional about what really matters. And that's looking back like, gosh, has my spending brought me to a place that I enjoy? And if not, how do I want to change that? And budgeting is the exercise you then use to make sure you are spending on what you like.
It's really interesting, and you make me realize that a friend of mine, she's actually really good about budgeting. Sometimes she's a little bit apologetic that she can't do this
Mm.
particular fun night out or do this thing that's just not in the budget. And she also is really deliberate to say, my priority is Disney, and we are taking the entire family on a big Disney trip. And so because of that, it's in some ways she explains it. And in some ways I really need to give her feedback. That's such a great role modeling for everyone for how you can just talk about it instead of making it negative. You just really anchor to what's really important for you, your family in this particular quarter, or this maybe sometime we could go to a spa, but we could do that some other time.
What I hear in your friend is that she's intentional about spending on what matters to her. And sometimes it's not the spa day or the fancy meal out, and not because she's being cheap or frugal
Mhm.
or because she is struggling financially. It's just not her priority right now to do with her money. And that's a good thing to know about herself and to know that what she actually prefers more is the Disney cruise with the family. Thanks
Mhm.
for sharing that. Well,
Yeah, and I do totally agree with you that so much of, budgeting is considered, like, from a negative headspace that we do shameful whenever we do break our budget. I was wondering actually, are there ways that you, have helped your clients previously in the past with that budgeting and the why and getting excited and understanding what my friend already has, that she understands her values and her priorities? Because this is similar to what we do also with our clients, that the rest of the plan, the career plans, the what to do next with your team first anchors to your why. So that like that why piece is really important. So I'm curious what things that
yeah,
are important for us to think about.
for sure. And it's something that has changed my own approach to coaching because for a long time, I was so bent on this mission that people of all income levels really can be so benefited by budgeting that is like, let's get everyone on a budget. Let me help you budget in happy, fun ways. And I was spending so much energy on rebranding budgeting. And now my approach is if somebody tells me, like, oh, I should really get on a budget, my response, why?
Mhm.
And truly like waiting for an answer and asking why multiple times because the fact is you might not be ready to change. You might not be ready to actually and also to look at your life in a new way of possibility. And that's a big part of my own story. And I like to share that often. It's all throughout my book, Dear Fellow Spender, that that what I'm saying to you is not coming from a person who's always been good with money, has always been frugal. It's not a shouldy approach that I take to money. I had my own financial transformation where I woke up to all of this. And it came down to why and what did I want to make possible. And so that is definitely where I've come with anybody I help with money or life planning, coaching. It's what do you want?
Mhm.
And then let's get some systems in place. And that's really all budgeting is. It's a system to make sure you are going to get on a timeline you want the things that you say you want in life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because it is a mindset shift, but just a different way of seeing everything. And I can say that in terms of budgeting, a lot of times people feel really shameful. For example, myself, even if I accidentally spent too much or some of the things that you didn't realize you were spending all that money on, like TV or any of those things you don't even really use. It feels so good to get rid of those subscriptions, right? So I think when you realize that you much more are in value with eating out or going to travel, at some point you realize this year I do want to travel and this year I do want to take a huge trip to Hawaii. How am I going to make it? That's when you suddenly realize, you know what? I'm not going to get coffee every day from Starbucks. I'm not going to spend $7 a day. And then 7 times 365 becomes a lot and then you feel really good about it. So I think it's really interesting that just like you said, when you can figure out the why, what's super important, then the rest in some ways becomes a new habit that you get strong. And then once you do it once, it's addictive. You try it again.
Totally. On that note, I would also say with the like the $7 coffee a day,
Mhm.
my approach to money and life. So it really my platform is intentional money, intentional life. There's a book called The Paradox of Choice. And the author, Barry Schwartz, talks about if you like silk shirts, only own one and only wear it occasionally. And that's an example of if you want to continue enjoying silk shirts, don't wear them all the time.
Mhm.
And so, like that cup of coffee, you'll probably enjoy it more if it's a thing you do occasionally, as opposed to we're in such a consumption state. And I'm never the one to tell you what you should and shouldn't be spending on. That is none of my business. I just want your spending to bring you satisfaction and happiness. And buying that coffee every day, maybe that is the way you tap into happiness, but it also might be you trying to avoid parts of your life that you could be doing something about that would bring you much deeper joy and satisfaction.
Yeah, it's funny you say that actually, because that was an unintended side effect to my choice to not do the Starbucks anymore. Only
Mhm.
because I also noticed that other people, all my coworkers were like, "Oh no, I'm good. I brought my own coffee." I'm like, "Well, I have no more friends to go take coffee with." So I accidentally aligned everything together. And you're right.
Yeah.
When I do get Starbucks now, it's luxury. And then it wasn't intentional. It was just because when your priorities shift and you need to spend money on other things, that's how it came out
Mhm.
accidentally. It's a great observation. I'm curious, and so I guess a lot of we always think that it's about the amount of money that we have. Why doesn't having plenty of money or making more money, because a lot of times we hustle more, we go pick up a side job. Why does not making more money make a difference in our financial stress levels?
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to take out the financial stress levels and just position that as life stress
Mm.
because really the Venn diagram of money and life is like almost a complete overlap.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and so it really is the effect on stress levels in general. I know from personal experience, I doubled my income before I realized I did not have an income problem. I had a money management opportunity. And I've seen this in one of my early clients was spending $750,000 in a year and making more than that. And another client was making like $13 an hour. And I was working with them on the exact same things, which were they both wanted to feel like they were doing a a good job managing what they had. Then they might not have stated it that explicitly, but I'll say that you're never going to feel good about something you're ignoring or something you're not doing. And so if you're not taking care of your money, which really is all the budgeting and monthly money management stuff is, it's just taking care of what you have and from the roots up, as opposed to trying to ignore the roots and focus entirely on the big stuff.
Mhm.
You're just not going to feel really good about money. And again, I know that from personal experience. And I see it over and over in clients that they feel so much more equipped to take care of themselves emotionally, even more than just financially, when they start proactively taking care of money. And it really has very little to do with the number of zeros or the size of the bank account. And then I'd finally just add that more money only magnifies what's going on at the root level.
Mhm.
And if roots are really messy or really shame filled, you're just going to have you're just pouring gas on that fire. And so the opportunity is to just look at those roots and get the roots healthy.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think a lot of times it's stories we tell ourselves. At least that was in my case too. It's the stories we tell ourselves about whether I'm
Mhm.
good or bad at something, or that I like it or I don't like it, or I still can't understand it because all these other things. I know for one of our healthcare clinicians, when we do these workshops, it's
Mhm.
everyone's a little bit embarrassed because they're like, I can literally save your life, but I cannot figure out what to do with my
Yeah.
money. And
Yeah.
it's super interesting because, once the light bulb goes on, which is why I think there's a lot of different communities within different physicians or different work groups. If they'd like to talk about money, it's you find some community there because
Mhm.
you realize, oh, it's almost like self-efficacy. And we talk about with our energy leadership coaching is that once one thing starts to become better, everything else becomes better. So I like how you brought that up.
Yeah, well, and that reminds me of something I have said often before, which is that starting in our 30s and 40s, we start to use our credentials and our success against ourselves. And I'm too smart to be this bad with money, or I'm too successful to admit or tell anybody that I have X amount on my credit cards.
Mhm.
So we start using like high income levels or credentials or success against ourselves. And that isn't really no fun. And also so the solution seems to be, okay, I just need more money to fix this problem or the situation.
Mhm.
It is an absolute honor to have had the conversations I've had with people of all income levels. In fact, I can remember my own family physician when I told her years ago that I did financial coaching.
Mhm.
She paused and like a real honest look at me. She said, I should talk with you. And there's a feeling of release, a relief and release when
Yeah.
leave these things out loud
Hmm.
and have to hear them. Somebody who understands the feelings of shame and stress and can receive them with no judgment and kind of show them that they can provide that for themselves as they start getting proactive with it.
Yeah. And it's funny too, 'cause I also know that people get a little anxious when they think about, should I really invest the money in a money coach or a life coach or anything coach? Because I'm literally paying money to try to fix the problem.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, whenever you encounter that, what are some of the mindset shifts that you've seen people be able to make to be able to take the leap to get the help they need?
Yeah, that is it's a tricky one, honestly, especially with money coaching is a really interesting space. And especially the clients I most want to help and feel the most drawn to help are pretty defensive. And so they may avoid conversation, and that's why I wrote my book, honestly. Win hearts and minds to bring them into conversation, have a super intimate conversation with a money best friend. And for the clients who have made changes, I would say it was a readiness that they're not willing to tolerate what they've been tolerating for a long time before.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty respectful of helping them assess their own readiness to change so that it's not one more thing they pour money into
Right,
while there are still holes in the bucket.
right.
And to make sure that this will be a positive thing for them. So for that reason, I'm particular about who I work with or how I work with them to
Mhm.
make sure there's some skin in the game that they've qualified themselves to be like, yes, I've seen where I'm at and I'm ready to make changes because then money spent will be money well spent.
Right, absolutely. That's a really great point, the readiness to change. The readiness to say, "I can really try." It's a commitment. In some ways, it's a real commitment whenever you put money down on something. It's also interesting that we've discovered that a lot of times when we do all the free workshops and you can do all the advice, that you can get out there, and yet when you actually pay the money, do the commitment, put it on your calendar, it actually makes very quick change once you're able to do the work. So I want to end more on a more positive tip advice note. What are the three key things that people can do to start actually enjoying their experience
Yeah.
with money and spending?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing I would say is actually look at your money. It's a relationship because it is. Looking at your money and spending and seeing how much life actually costs you. And that sounds maybe like a no-brainer again, but with credit cards and home equity lines of credit, it is very easy to mask how much life really costs. And so looking at your spending to see how much life actually costs you is a really critical place to start. It's like looking under the bed to see how big the monster is. It is in almost every case bigger than you think, and there may not actually be a monster. The second thing I would suggest is to identify what you even want, like why you want anything to be different
Mhm.
and be specific about it. People will say, I want to, quote, be better with money, or I want to, quote, pay down debt. But those are pretty vague, and so you'll never achieve this elusive status of being better with money. You can, however, pick a thing and see how possible it is, and then turn it into a goal and make it happen. And being very specific and quantifying what you want and your path there is huge. And then the third thing is getting proactive instead of reactive. And a couple sub ideas on this definitely include budgeting before you spend instead of reactively looking at what you spent. I think that has been something that hasn't served many of us well is budgeting has been reframed as, yeah, you just look at what you spent last month. And that's like punishing yourself as opposed to deciding in advance what you choose to spend. Another thing that some of those joining today may experience is deciding what you want your financial relationships to look like. And this might be with older teenage children or young adult children, deciding in advance or deciding fresh what you want that relationship to look like and start putting that into place instead of always reacting to their requests. And that is just so helpful for you and your child in this example. So those are the three things: looking at your money and seeing how much life actually costs you. Number two, identifying what you want and quantify it. And then three is get proactive instead of reactive.
I love them. Those are such good tips. Except I love them all. And so, what is the story behind your company name, Moso Money?
Yeah, yeah. Moso is a type of bamboo. I came across that name and the story behind it in a devotional book years ago. And the short answer is that this type of bamboo, it grows slowly at first while its roots are forming and getting solid and deep.
Mhm.
And once those roots are right, it can start growing several inches in a day, which I think would be so cool to watch. And I am just so interested in the growth that can happen for people when they get their roots right. You can't really skip the root stages. Things like credit cards have made it more possible for us to do that financially. But in life and money, the happiest, most successful people I know, whether they started with their roots right or whether they took time, midlife, whatever, to get their roots right, they're living a life that really matters to them and have so many more options for contentment. And so, again, that's just my get your roots is one of my taglines in helping people get intentional with their money and their life.
Oh, I love that. That is so incredible. It's been such an honor to have you on our podcast. I guess I just want to ask you also, how can people get in touch with you, work with you?
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram at moso_money. And my website is mosomoney.com. And I do have a course. It's super affordable and it's actually intended to only take a couple hours. And this is like the assessing the readiness of somebody who's willing to put a little bit of skin and effort into the game. That's a prerequisite to working with me in coaching. And that's available on my website. And my book is available on Amazon. It's also linked on my website. Yeah, love to hear from any of your listeners.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for listening to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching podcast. If you found this episode interesting or useful, please share it with your friends and colleagues in healthcare. And we would love it if you hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We want to help with the topics and problems that you want us to talk about. Leave us a review wherever you listen to us with suggestions, feedback, and praise. It means so much to us, and we actually read every comment. For deeper support in your life and work as a healthcare professional and leader, head over to transforminghealthcarecoaching.com. Download our free 5 reflection questions to jumpstart your journey and join our email list to be the first to know about our coaching programs. We're also excited to offer the MedThrive community, a supportive space for group coaching and self-paced personal growth, providing an alternative path to growth beyond one-on-one coaching programs. Find out more and join this thriving community at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com. Together, we can transform healthcare, one person at a time.